Welcome back to Screen Preach. It's episode 10. And, okay, yeah, he's gonna say it. Oh, okay, alright. No, don't say it, you fucking nerd. I'm gonna say it. Don't say it. Okay, here we go. I just say nothing. May the 4th be with you. Alright. It's Star Wars Day. Officially. And I did not plan that. I literally realized it like after I recorded last week's episode. It was like I started seeing things for it, and then there was Disney Plus said that they were releasing Rise of Skywalker on May the 4th, and then I put it all together. It was like, what perfect fucking timing, huh? I did not plan this, but it worked out perfectly that this episode would come out on May the 4th. It is not May the 4th right now for me. It is May the 3rd. So me saying May the 4th be with you on May the 3rd, I guess, doesn't work as good. I'm gonna have to slow that down in the beginning to make that work. Shout out to my boy Josh. He for the new intro that you just heard. It's awesome. He's great. He's a friend of mine from school, from Purchase College. It was good to get him to work on that, and you can actually find his work on. You can follow him on Instagram at jerk_sounds, and he's got music out there. Go find him on Spotify. Look for Jerk. He's a great talent, and it was cool to get him to do the intro. But yeah, episode 10, May 4th. It all lined up to do Star Wars. This is the Screen Preach Star Wars special edition episode. And I'm gonna talk about a good amount of stuff. Just have some fun with it, and my perspective on some of the on certain aspects of it, and then just having fun with like talking about where I rank them, and how I watch them, and just so I'm not really gonna go crazy with news, because I think I have a lot more to talk about. So I'll run through news quick, I guess. But I mean, there's some Star Wars news to talk about. I guess maybe I'll do that after. Let's get through the basic stuff here. Official poster for Capone came out, and pretty cool. That's soon. That comes out in the next couple weeks. I don't know yet how they're doing it. Should be straight to VOD. I have a problem with straight to VOD right now, because they're not letting you just buy the movies. I understand that you want people to actually watch, so you have only a rent option so that they rent, but why not just put both options there for people who might want to buy it? I guess maybe because then, if a household has it bought, then they don't all have to rent it, and it costs them money that way. I guess. I don't know. Whatever. I heard there's a new G.I. Joe movie in the works. Okay. I guess. Also, like they're doing another Transformers movie. I know, right? How can I be like this, sitting here in a fucking Star Wars shirt, Star Wars memorabilia, Star Wars fucking posters, and be tired over Transformers? It's because Transformers don't fucking hit the mark in terms of like quality and hype compared to Star Wars, no, doesn't doesn't hit the mark. What so cool, like GI whatever. They're doing a live action Hercules movie, and I think someone was supposed to be doing this. Someone cool is doing the Hercules movie. Oh yeah, the Russo brothers from the Avengers movies. They're producing it, so that's cool. Um, what else? I don't know. Uh, Thor: Love and Thunder director looks at the positive side of his release date delay. Yeah, he said he'll be working overtime on the script to make what's already a very good script into the perfect script. Chris Hemsworth said he read the script and it was fucking amazing. I'm sure it is. If Ragnarok is any indicator, yeah, Love and Thunder should be fire. That might be one of the ones I'm looking forward to the most. It's gotta be. Listen, it's hard to already believe we're in May, and yeah, this past Friday, May 1st, is actually when we were all supposed to be seeing Black Widow. That's when it was supposed to come out. We'd already have seen it. It sucks to think about, but this is where we're at. Space Jam 2 title revealed by LeBron James. So they're doing Space Jam 2. It was Michael Jordan in the first one. It's LeBron James in the second one. And what's the title? I can't check really. I guess I could try, hoping that my fucking thing doesn't stop recording. You know what I mean? Um. Hi, poopy pants. What's up? Oh, you feel better. She feels all better this week. No accidents. All good. Want some coffee? Yeah, then you really shit yourself. Alright, the title of Space Jam 2 is. 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 Come on. Fucking computer. A New Legacy. Oh my god. I don't know. That's cool, I guess. That was such a great movie as a kid, that first Space Jam. So that's just nostalgia. That's the energy behind that for me. I am not okay with this co-creator adapting Stephen King's The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. I love anything Stephen King. You want to lay down so I don't have to sit like that? Or you just gonna keep doing that? Okay. Yeah, I'm almost halfway through the Outsider book. I want to read that book before I watch the show on HBO. He's just fucking anything. If you haven't read the Dark Tower series, I mean, God, if there was anything in need of being like truly adapted, it's that series. You want to talk about HBO level, Game of Thrones level shit? The Dark Tower needs to be fucking made. I don't know who you get to do it and do it right, because it has to be done right. Come on, lay down. It's okay. That needs to be made. I could see that. Like I said, though, with novels, I've said this before. You want to adapt that to television. You you start trying to make movies with that, it's not going to be the same, unless you can do it like how Harry Potter does it, or it's not easy to adapt book series to movies anymore. I don't think. I think it's better to do a Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones set a new standard for novels. Try to follow suit. If you're gonna do the Dark Tower, it's gotta be It's got to be an HBO hit series. You know what I mean? With 7 seasons or whatever. Like, that's how that works. I don't. But this is. You know, I've heard of this one, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. So that this would be a movie. I'm not exactly flying through the news, am I? They're doing a Goosebumps live action series at Netflix. So that's cool. Remember the old Goosebumps books and little like shows? That used to freak me out as a kid. I remember those episodes, like the one with the mask, where he gets stuck on him and then starts becoming like a monster. Like there was like all kinds of interesting. Those were the werewolf one when they visit the grandparents at the farm was the Skinwalker one, yeah, where they're looking at the house across the street and they see all the Skinwalkers. That was fucking good. That was good. This will be fun if they do this right. I posted this on my Instagram, but HBO's doing a Hellraiser series, and from the Halloween director, the latest Halloween director, um, oh fuck, what's his name? David Gordon Green, I think it's David Gordon Green. He's a big time comedy director of the past. He's worked with Seth Rogen a lot and Danny McBride and everything. Danny McBride and him, they wrote the last Halloween. That was a really good Halloween, and so this is cool that he's doing a Hellraiser series. Fun fact for me: never saw Hellraiser, the movie, the classic. Never saw it. Just remember a poster of it being in my cousin's room. That's all. I never saw it. I don't know. I must have just missed it after a while. I just didn't get to it. Netflix picks up Enola Holmes. So they're doing Enola Holmes, a series, or is it a movie? Does it matter? I'm not gonna. I want to get to Star Wars. This is May the 4th, and may it be with you that I fucking get to it, because I'm gonna get into it, and I might go over an hour, like you know. But Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things is playing Enola Holmes, the younger sister of the two Holmes brothers, Sherlock and the other one whose name I don't fucking know. But you know, and that's cool because she's awesome and Sherlock Holmes is awesome. So you know, kind of those two things together. You probably can't hear it, but there's like a guy yelling outside. And he's like, well, honestly, maybe you can hear it, because if I'm hearing it through here, doesn't that mean that you're hearing it through here, me hearing it through here, of you hear me hearing it through here means that you're hearing it through there. Right? Moving, let's shit. Shit. And of course it's skipping, you know. Man. And I also mentioned how the Cassian Andor series added some characters. So we'll get into Star Wars news of just a couple things. Now they've replaced the showrunner of Cassian Andor series, so there was somebody lined up to be the showrunner. And now the Rogue One writer, one of the Rogue One writers, is to be the new showrunner. And that's fucking cool because it's a Rogue One prequel-esque series about a character from Rogue One. So who better to be the showrunner than someone who wrote Rogue One, right? This is really cool too. So they're doing a Mandalorian docuseries that covers the production of the first season. And there's like a round table with all the creators, and it looks really cool. And it's an insight, inside look at the making of the Mandalorian. It'll be on Disney Plus. the big thing was that Rise of Skywalker will be on Disney Plus May the 4th. It's out there right now, people. You can go and watch every single one. Um, and they have everything now. All Star Wars stuff. I think also today for you, tomorrow for me right now, is the series finale of the Clone Wars, which I'm catching up on. I just got halfway through season 4, and man, I don't know if it was because I was a little high last night or what, but it's gotten so good now. There was like a turning point last night. I was just like they went from these like kind of whatever episodes with C-3PO and R2-D2, and all of a sudden, whew, there's this storyline with the clones and this fucking rogue Jedi, and then all of a sudden now it got dark. Like there's like a slavery storyline that's like, what the this is on Disney Plus. It's fucking great. This is the turn that I was waiting for too, because it's good. The whole thing is good, but the earlier seasons are, well, first the animation too. Like it got better. Like I don't know. It's just like it's so good. Like I'm very much enjoying it, and I hope to, now that the finale is today, I don't have to wait at all. I can just keep going and get all the way to the end. So yeah, everything's on there. May the 4th be with you. Disney gave you everything, and it's fun. Wow, we're 17 minutes in already. Holy shit! I was trying to do the news in like 5 minutes. Well, fuck me. I wanted to talk about Doctor Strange 2's release change. They changed it again because it was interesting. I guess I'll get into it real quick. They pushed it like behind everything now. Like it was after Shang-Chi. Now it's after Thor: Love and Thunder. So it's confusing to me how it connects to WandaVision when it looks like there's going to be a whole year in between WandaVision and Doctor Strange 2. I'm confused in that regard. And it just sucks because now that was one I think people were looking forward to a lot. And that's not to mention, when was the first Doctor Strange? 2016. That's a long 2016 to 2022. It's like, come on. I mean, but they know it. They're doing it purpose. They know what they're doing in terms of narrative and story and continuity. There's a reason for these specific switches, and yeah, yeah. When I fucking say that in this, it sounds like very interesting. I don't know why. Yeah. Oh, no. Nobody knew who I was till I put on a mask. And I guess let's fucking go, baby. Let's go. Let's get into it. Yeah, 100%. Let's go. We're talking about Star Wars now. Let's go. So yeah, let's do it. And yeah. A long time ago, about 45 years or so, give or take, in a place not so far away, Los Angeles, California. The biggest cultural phenomenon was born. I can't even begin to describe what an impact on our culture it has had. I don't think I need to. It's obvious. It's everywhere, in every form. There's some serious fans, diehard. I think at this point, too, I'd call myself a diehard fan. I've branched out. I'm not just watching the movies anymore. Watching the shows, reading the books. now it is what it is. You know. It's been fun to have during this quarantine for me. I can there's a lot of content I can just like enjoy, and it's a good way to pass time too. Um, and I think the best way to think about Star Wars, to think about the story of Star Wars, is first of all to understand it's not one story, but many. You know, the best representation of narrative in Star Wars is the very fact that George Lucas himself didn't know where things were going while he was writing A New Hope, the first one. So when you think about story overall and Star Wars and story, right? When you think about those things, think about think about the fact that George Lucas didn't himself didn't have any specific expectations on where to take the story. It just it grew beyond him in a way. It took form, as the story unfolded. Um, he didn't have some grand plan mapped out and written for years and years so that there was a clear direction he was going. It's this the story of the Skywalkers took form as the story itself continued to develop. Okay? That's first thing. Keep in mind. Yeah, you're going to get my perspective today on this. I got a lot of beef with you people who shit on shit and stuff in Star Wars. And I got a lot of love for you people who agree with what I'm saying. Why is there bugs in here right now? To expect Star Wars to go in any one direction is the first mistake fans make. Okay? You're not doing yourself a service to have any expectations. Is doing you a disservice. And my headphones are not on right ever. You see me fixing these all the time? They just don't feel right. I don't know why I'm so tired today. Let's drink the coffee. The force is not strong with this one today. It's best to let it unfold. Okay? Star Wars. Let it unfold as Lucas let it unfold. Embrace it for what it is and what it becomes. What's at the heart of Star Wars? What should everything that exists in the Star Wars universe consist of? The battle between good and evil. If you're telling me that otherwise, I don't understand what you think Star Wars is about, because that's what it's about. That's at the core of Star Wars. The heart of Star Wars is the main theme is good versus evil. Okay? There's no other there's other themes. It's the most. There's so much relatability with every theme they can pull on, they pull on. But the main thing is good versus evil. And on all levels, physically, there's a good versus bad presence in the galaxy, and the battle between good and evil within ourselves. That's to say, the character struggles with their inner conflicts, right? As long as this remains a constant in Star Wars stories, the rest is differentiated by the vision of the creators, okay? The point I'm trying to make with story is that it's better to embrace the fact that Star Wars is ever-changing. All right, so I had a couple of moments in my life where I was as cynical about Star Wars as many of the fans these days are. First moment was when I saw the originals for the first time. This is important, too, for my point, Okay? I grew up on the prequels, not the originals, the prequels. But it's interesting because I saw the originals before Revenge of the Sith came out. So the way I saw it worked wonders. You know, it was good. It worked, like, in terms of continuity and everything. It was actually, I'll get into ways to watch Star Wars too, because that's fun. So the originals didn't. It's important to keep this in mind. The originals didn't feel like Star Wars to me because of the prequels being what I was growing up on at the time. Nevertheless, when I found out Darth Vader was Luke's father, someone who had seen Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones first, I was just as blown away as anyone finding that out. That twist. It made me want to see how that happens when, I was waiting for Revenge of the Sith to come out. It's like 9-year-old kid or whatever. I'm like, okay, now how does that happen? Because he's been our hero, for me watching Phantom Menace and Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones. He's been the hero you follow, and it's like he becomes bad. What? The point is I had to adjust to the originals. There was no denying their cinematic quality, but I had to accept that Star Wars wasn't one singular look and feel. The originals and prequels are very different. Then when The Force Awakens came out, I had another moment. I have to admit, it felt more like the originals, The Force Awakens. So, having that much time to let the originals and the prequels age for me, obviously the originals are the greatest quality-wise, just the best of it. So The Force Awakens was like, okay, this feels more like that. And I was like, okay, maybe Star Wars was embracing what it should be. Okay? Maybe Disney's films were going to give us actual Star Wars films. Okay? This is all to my point. Then The Last Jedi came out, and it was clear that wasn't the case anymore. Once again, Star Wars had changed, and that was fine, too. I think going from the prequels to the originals for me helped me realize what Star Wars is all about. I didn't bitch and moan like every other fucking Star Wars fan. In fact, The Last Jedi has aged well for me. I'm hoping The Rise of Skywalker does. Because the biggest flaw with the sequels is the lack of one singular vision. That is where they fell. That's why they have the flaws they have. Because they didn't have they didn't have one person behind the trilogy. I've come to accept and even embrace that the stories are various interpretations of one's perspective. But when you are doing a trilogy, all 3 films should have a singular vision. There should be a cohesiveness of vision. Even the originals, which weren't all directed by George Lucas, there was still his cohesive vision behind them. Each film does its best. So in the sequels, each film does its best to build on the last, but there's also clear undoing of plot points and character development. It's clear that harm the trilogy overall. I should have, for this, of all things, I should have said spoilers, but I don't think I got into anything yet, so I can still say, well, I did talk about Darth Vader being, but if you don't know that, even if you haven't seen it, you probably know that, because it's been given away in every sense of fucking, just spoilers. And if you haven't seen Star Wars, there's no better time than now. Fucking seriously, people. It's a cultural phenomenon. And if you haven't seen it, there's just, I mean, come on. Come on. Um, I'm, I'm, I'm glad I still enjoy the sequel trilogy, okay? Having accepted how Star Wars operates at this point as a narrative machine of various visions, because that's what it is now, it allows me to stop having expectations. It allows me to go in and enjoy whatever interpretation of Star Wars I'm about to see next. There's two questions you need to ask yourself when you watch a Star Wars film. First, do you like it? Okay? The problem is most people only ask that question. The second question you need to ask yourself is, did you understand it? Or, I guess three questions. Does it work? Okay? Every film is flawed, even the best ones in some ways. But does it work is the big question. Because if it works, then there's not enough wrong with it. And if there's not enough wrong with it, then you really can't say you hate it. Another thing, you can't say you hate it unless you've loved it. I've also come to accept that the Star Wars universe transcends our own puny limitations. We put specific limitations on what Star Wars is and should be, but Star Wars is bigger than our own ideas of what it looks and feels like. There's so much that happens in the Star Wars universe, that it allows any new cinematic content being made to do more than any earlier film has before. The gaps in between trilogies, like every new film trilogy or just singular film that comes out from now on until forever will be different. It just will be different because times change. I don't we'll get into all of it. So let's talk specifically about the narratives of Star Wars, okay? This is really where we get into spoilers. What works, what doesn't, but most importantly, why it doesn't matter. Why it doesn't matter. I've found every aspect of it not only enjoyable, but relevant. From the start, Lucas made Star Wars tellable in any order. When he, the possibilities of jumping forward and backward, that right there, like if you want to delve into any content, you can go in any order you want. He set the tone with that by using non-linear ordering of his films. He started with episode 4. It just made it more interesting right off the bat in general. Or I guess confusing, depending on how you look at it. If you can take the time to actually think about it, though, and not be lazy, it's not difficult to see what he was doing. It's not complicated either. It's not confusing. Just have a little fucking effort. Put in a little effort. Think about it for a second. I'm sure anyone who initially saw Episode 4 come out, like in 1977, or when the originals came out, I'm sure that there was like a thought. When they saw Episode 4, they must have thought, well, not only is there the potential for 5 and 6, but what's 1 through 3 like? Like, it just immediately, it's like, what? And then forget it. When it's like Darth Vader's reveal, it was clear 1 through 3 was about Anakin Skywalker, and that just made it that much more intriguing. So non-linear, I'm all for it. I think it works. I never thought starting with 4 was a problem. No, never. There's just a lot of continuity to keep intact, which for the most part they do keep it intact. There's small moments that are annoying that you kind of just have to brush off. I think one of the more famous things is the fact that Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't recognize R2-D2. Meanwhile, he fought with that fucking droid in the Clone Wars for years. That's just like stupid little shit that like they time and yeah, the nonlinear harmed that. You know, some things, you know. Fucking literally, the Clone Wars, R2 is a huge R2 and Anakin's relationship, and it's just it is a weird moment. I kind of just don't even listen to that line anymore when I watch. When I watch now, episode 4, and that line comes up, and I know right when he's about to say it, so I go like this. Because it's bullshit. He knows who R2D2 is. But the way the story world's rules work help sort out a lot of the other little continuity errors that there might be. The big one people have a problem with is that R2D2 knew Anakin became Darth Vader and never told Luke. People wonder, okay, why? People know why C-3PO didn't, because his memory was wiped. His memory is wiped twice in the entire Skywalker saga. And then it's actually all given back to him in the last film. So it's clear why he didn't tell Luke, but why not R2? And be creative with it. Why didn't fucking Obi-Wan and Yoda tell him? Wasn't their place to tell him. You know? It could be that simple with R2. It's not my place to tell Luke this. He's the wisest droid there is. For a fucking astro droid. Fucking guy. Fucking droid is very clever, wise, and he's kind, and he has a heart. He's a great character. Why wouldn't he also maybe just think, it's not my place to tell Luke? I don't know. For the most part, the rules of the story world sort stuff out. So, like, for instance, Obi-Wan Kenobi in the originals mentions how Yoda was his master, right? But we all come to know later that his master was actually Qui-Gon Jinn. You have to think about it for a minute. Once again, Lucas fixes this by making it clear that Yoda trains every new Jedi that comes through the Academy first as a youngling, before being taken under the wing of another Jedi Master as a Padawan learner, right? That's how that works. So when Obi-Wan says that, it's clear, and we've seen scenes of Yoda training younglings. That's what Obi-Wan probably went through. He was a youngling and he was trained by Yoda, and then he was taken on by Qui-Gon Jinn. Stuff like that works itself out. Yoda even says in Empire that for 800 years he trained Jedi. That doesn't mean he had 100 personal Padawans. He trained them all early on in their training. That's how that works. Talk about Yoda for a second. Yoda very much shaped the Jedi Order in every conceivable way when we first see it in The Phantom Menace. The amount of centuries he's lived and served the Jedi Order makes the one we see very much his. That's his Jedi Order. And it's a shame, too. Because in many ways, it's true that Master Yoda is in contention as the greatest Jedi of all time. He's easily in the top 3, probably. But it's his Jedi Order, unfortunately, that fails to defeat the Sith and allows the Jedi to be destroyed. But think about this thematically and overall, okay? Nobody really shits on Yoda. Everyone loves Yoda. Nobody really, there's no, real bitching and moaning about Yoda. So think about this for a second. It was Yoda's ultimate failure to not defeat the Sith and to allow the Jedi to be wiped out like that, okay? This idea of failure is a great theme and thread to pull on. Because these are Jedi, and they're heroes, and we can't fathom them. We can't fathom them making mistakes. We can't fathom them making mistakes or failing because they're powerful. So this is it's an important theme. And Yoda being this powerful, to think of him failing so horribly and miserably. This common theme of failure needed to reoccur at some point. I think it was important. I think you'll see most of the themes reoccur, but failure is an important one. And I think Rian Johnson making failure the key theme of his story in The Last Jedi was not only bold, but refreshing. When you think of Luke Skywalker, he's this great hero who he does the right thing. But why can't he make a mistake? Why is it why can't we fathom him making a mistake? I mean, it wouldn't be the first time we see a Jedi we love, Yoda, fail so horribly. When we learn of Luke's fate in The Last Jedi, it's not the first time that a Jedi we love has failed so miserably. Yoda did, and he learned from his experience, which makes it that much more impactful that it be him to teach Luke this lesson, to teach Luke that he made the same mistake. That the awesome, fantastic Star Wars. It's just another fantastic Star Wars line in the stories of Star Wars, is Yoda's speech to Luke in The Last Jedi. The greatest teacher failure is, he says. And that's not just true for fucking Star Wars, it's true for life, for us, for people. I think it was of course it's risky. You're taking a character we know to be this overall, a character who believes in the good in people, right? Doing something that's against that idea. But it's about failure. It's about making that mistake and the consequences of it. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And for everyone pissed off about the direction they took with Luke, what would you have had them do? I guess rebuild the Jedi Order, transcend what they were, be a better Jedi, teach the Jedi. Sure, okay, fine. But where's the conflict there? Okay, announcement, they're doing a new Star Wars trilogy. Oh, okay, so it'll be about the Jedi being rebuilt and the Sith not exist. Oh yeah, that's right. The Sith don't exist because. Oh, that's right. Because Luke defeated them. So what's the story of? I don't. Yeah, what did you want it to be about? Like, this is there's more conflict here. There's more to work with, and Luke doing this. It brought the dark side back to life by doing this. I'll get into it. I'm going to get into all of it because I think it's brilliant. I mean, just in general, it took Luke in a new direction. It was different. That, to me, is already... That's more effective than doing just the same... It would be the same... I know what you're going to say. It's like, well, the whole fucking trilogy is the same thing. It pulls on every thread of the originals. It's not original. It's just the original. But it's... fuck you. How about that? I don't know. Look, it's important, okay? Even a powerful Jedi Master with nothing but goodness in his character makeup can make mistakes, can be infected by darkness. I like to think... So this is what I was going to say. So it's important. This was important. I like to think that Anakin brought a balance to the Force, right? Because he was the chosen one. He brought a balance to the Force by defeating Emperor Palpatine. And for a time, there was a balance. This is something Luke even says, and it's touched on a couple times. So Luke's failure with Kylo Ren, it gave the dark side a resurgence. Thus, the Force needed to awaken in someone powerful with the light. So Rey becomes that person. Rey is our hero. It just makes... It kind of lines up for me that way. It makes sense. because there was a balance, and then darkness infected Luke in even the slightest bit, and it brought about a darkness in Kylo Ren, and thus the dark side. It might have even helped Palpatine's resurgence too. You know, when you give any kind of spark to the dark side of the Force, it can be very dangerous. I think that's how that plays out. Yeah. I mean, you can look at it however you want. That's what's so great about it. You can look at it however you want. We'll talk about structure. Star Wars has a recurring structure. I know it may feel repetitive to many when we see twists and revelations involving family heritage and destinies, but that's Star Wars. And if it's not Star Wars, it's at least the Skywalker saga. So, of course, that's the direction you're going to go with the Skywalker films. With the new ones, that's the direction you're going to go. You're going to bring family heritage into it, probably. You know, it just... I will say, though, to be truly unique, this is something that current creators should think about straying away from. Now that the Skywalker story is over, presumably, in the history of time, from now on, there will never be a more effective and impactful twist than "I am your father," right? J.J. Abrams did a good job revealing Kylo Ren to be the son of Han and Leia. That really, the way that he structured that was really effective. But that's as far as it should go. Star Wars needs to be able to grow beyond the Skywalkers. And although I don't have a problem with making Rey a Palpatine, because it ultimately still works in hindsight when thinking about the Skywalker story as a whole, Rian Johnson was going in a better direction by making Rey a nobody. The Force is not something that resides in predestined heroes with royal bloodlines. The Force resides in all living things. Said multiple times. The idea that anyone can be a Jedi is important. And despite what we now know to be true about Rey's story, we can't forget how resonant that message is from The Last Jedi. The reveal of Darth Vader to be Anakin Skywalker is about more than just changing Luke's story. It makes Darth Vader a truly menacing and empowering villain into a tragic figure unlike any other. All of a sudden, he wasn't just the bad guy anymore. He was a sad embodiment of one's own downfall. All of these things are brilliant. This is what makes Star Wars brilliant, this stuff. All of a sudden, he was... I said that already. All of a sudden, he was... I said that. All of a sudden, there was a chance he could not only be saved, but redeemed. From then on, it was clear who the true villain of the Skywalker saga was, right? Emperor Palpatine is the true villain of the Skywalker saga. Emperor Palpatine was responsible for the creation of Darth Vader, and by extension, years of suffering and death under the rule of the Sith. And when you think about it, it was always Luke's destiny to face Darth Vader, not the Emperor. That was Luke's destiny. Just as it was Anakin's destiny to bring balance to the Force, even if it's only a brief balance. So there are ways to look at what the sequel trilogy eventually did that still works. Are there ways it could have worked better? Maybe. Do you have to like the direction it went? No. But you can't tell me it doesn't work. You see what I'm getting at? I think my favorite thing about Rise of Skywalker was that fear came back around in an effective way. Which is why one of my favorite lines in that film is when Luke tells Rey, "Facing fear is the destiny of a Jedi." It summed up much of what came to be of our heroes throughout the entire saga. What is that? Um, yeah, and some some characters let fear consume them. Others would overcome it. I don't know. I hear some fucking probably just someone upstairs. Um, it's something any human watching the films can relate to. We all have an inner Jedi Knight inside of us, and especially now in a time like this, the coronavirus, we need to embrace that part of ourselves and overcome the most fearful thing of all. You know? Just someone in another room. That's all. Hopefully it's not a rat or something. Fuck. Or a bat. Huh? Yeah. Star Wars is known for acting as a wise teacher of audiences. It's always people look up to Jedi because they embrace all that we struggle with in reality. So many meaningful moments exist in the films. So many inspirational lines. I think Yoda's "do or do not, there is no try" is probably the most famous. But you can find these moments scattered in Star Wars lore. There's lessons everywhere. I also think it's why a series like the Clone Wars works so well. Any kid watching it, because it is aimed at kids, but can be enjoyed by anyone. Um, I think now it's taking that. I think it gets more mature as it goes on. As I said, I think any kid watching it is going to learn from the show. One of the best things they do in the show too is they start each episode off with a quote, and then the episode embodies that quote in some way. So lessons, life lessons. Then there is the matter of taking the truths revealed in the original trilogy. Okay, this was the big thing for Lucas. He had to apply all of these truths that were revealed to the telling of Anakin Skywalker's story. This is where Lucas lost some people. To say the least, it's just not what people imagined Anakin's story being like. Some felt like it devalued the character of Vader. But all the themes are there. All the lessons are there. Anakin's emotions never faltered. It was exactly the kind of character you would expect. He failed to grasp the true ways of the Jedi, and it cost not only him but the entire galaxy. These things are continuously touched upon in the Skywalker saga, and you know what? It opens up more questions to be thinking about. Was it Anakin's fault, or the fault of the Jedi failing to embrace change and growth, stuck in old ways of thinking? If they had allowed themselves to change, there's a good chance they would have been able to stop Darth Sidious from rising to power. Maybe. Probably. They would have known how best to handle Anakin's power and prevent him from turning to the dark side. The Jedi that we see in the films, in the prequels, that Jedi Order existed in 1,000-year great peace, okay? If they were at the height of their power, they would never have let that stuff happen. They were in a true decline of power. The dark side clouded everything. They very sneakily allowed themselves, the Sith, to gain power in every aspect of the galaxy, to the point where the person leading the Republic is a Sith Lord. That kind of stuff would not have happened if the Jedi were in the height of their power. Then again, even in the Great Peace, they're at the height of their power, and they could not figure out what the Sith were up to for 1,000 years. A master and an apprentice of the Sith Order just kept finding ways to infiltrate every aspect of the galaxy, just in the shadows. And you know what? If it's probably because the Jedi were clinging to old ways of thinking, philosophy, this dogmatic, just nothing but hubris and fucking. If they needed to change the Jedi, everything needs to change at some point. They needed to change. They needed change, and they didn't embrace that idea at all. It only made them worse. It made them predictable, to say the least. It was easy for the Sith to do what they did. Yeah, yeah. So in the prequels, overall, the animation was poor. The performances were, you know, like this. And let's be clear, there is no real chemistry in the, between Anakin and Padme in those films. They're not like, I don't buy their relationship. Wasn't believable enough. But the Clone Wars series that I'm watching and does a much better job with their relationship than the films do. I think the best thing the prequels did, okay, this is the best thing the prequels could have done, is that they show the Star Wars universe in a different time, a time that somehow manages to feel like a fresh and extraordinary version of Star Wars. It's interesting to think about this too, because the prequels are what Lucas originally saw Star Wars being, not the originals. The prequel films are actually what Lucas sees Star Wars as. That's his actual vision for what Star Wars is, more than the originals, which is crazy. But it's just a shame that films like they fall kind of short narratively. So the greatest achievement of the prequels, if nothing else, was giving us that style of Star Wars. That style, that look and feel of Star Wars, that gave creators a whole bag of tricks to work. In telling some of the best Star Wars stories we've gotten since the original trilogy, whether it's books, TV shows, a lot of it touches on that style, the prequel style. Okay? So, the Clone Wars is just one example. The Clone Wars series, which in many ways feels like the perfect prequel to the original, a better prequel to the originals than the actual prequel films. But beyond that, too, this style also, the style of the prequels also gave us the feel of the novels and the comics that take place hundreds and thousands of years before the films. I mean, there's a bunch that take place after the originals too, but any of them that come out before, that's that feel of the prequels, the old Republic, the Jedi and the Republic at their height, hundreds of different wars and conflicts, and just that feel, that style, that's what the prequels gave us. That's their greatest achievement, if nothing else. Yeah, I mean, ever since Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker had a conversation about the Clone Wars, right, in the first film, it became a mysterious and interesting war that we ached to know more about. And the prequel films skip over it. It's a whole period of, we have the beginning of the wars at the end of the second film in that trilogy, and we have the end of the Clone Wars that consume the third film in that trilogy. There's so much story there. There's so much mystery. Dave Filoni and the other creators of the show, and George Lucas himself too. George Lucas is a huge part of the Clone Wars series. Give us the official story of this war, of what the Clone Wars is. And it lives up. It lives up to expectations. That series, I think, if we're talking about expectations. Taking place in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, it separates itself from the films too, while also not straying away from the obvious continuity. It's like it frames itself in this idea of the Clone Wars, that conversation between Luke and Obi-Wan. You fought in the Clone Wars, right? And he says, "I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father." What's that story? And that's what the series does. It's great. It's fucking great. Um, but then there's the novels, man. I gotta talk about it. I put that there for just like for decorative purposes. I don't. But the novels, man, they opened up the universe even more. I, there are things presented in these stories that, like I said, allowed the more current films to do things the older films couldn't. So even the novels aid the films. Um, when it was revealed that Palpatine returned in Rise of Skywalker, it was enough for me, having read the books and stuff, to to just see a glimpse of the kind of experiments Palpatine was doing to restore himself back to life. It's believable enough, given the lore of Star Wars and given the rules of Star Wars. Um, in the novels, Sith sorcery is not uncommon. Many Sith have tried and even succeeded to extend their lives for generations. It's not out of the realm of possibility to think that Palpatine would try and do the same thing. Palpatine's Sith master, too, was Darth Plagueis, a Sith who went to extreme lengths experimenting with the Force, manipulating the Force. Perhaps one of the most powerful Sith Lords, too. Um, his only mistake was trusting his apprentice wouldn't kill him, obviously. Uh, so Palpatine would naturally attempt similar experiments. Anything that might possibly give him rebirth. The other reason J.J. Abrams was ultimately able to make Rey's story arc work was that he didn't totally destroy the fact that Rey was a nobody. I don't think he totally did. She wasn't raised by Palpatines. She wasn't trained by Sith. Uh, it wasn't important for her character to recognize that her... It was important for her character to recognize that her identity is her own. One of the lines in Rise of Skywalker is, some things are stronger than blood. Just because her bloodline ends up being Palpatine doesn't mean that she's any more or any less a nobody. You know what I mean? It made her decision to take on the Skywalker name work. It still works. It didn't not work because her bloodline is Palpatine. As it was Luke's destiny to confront Vader. This is also why it works. Think about this. It was Luke's destiny to confront Vader, his father. It was Rey's destiny to confront Palpatine. And destroy the ultimate evil. Destroy the Sith so that the Jedi can be reborn. It's easy for us to be all pissed because it's like Luke was supposed to be that person. But I don't know. I could go all day about Star Wars, seriously. I don't... Would it have worked better if Rey remained a nobody and then taken on the Skywalker name? That's a big debate right now, too. Maybe, but not necessarily. I mean, Palpatine being the most evil and overall villain is why I think it's more interesting to make Rey a Palpatine. Who better to defeat him than his own flesh and blood, and as a Jedi, too? The thing he hates most. That's why that still works. You see what I'm saying? You see why that's still cool and enjoyable? I just don't think it made her any less a nobody. It was still her decision. She was a nobody her whole life. She didn't know where she came from. So just finding out who she actually is, blood-wise, doesn't matter. It doesn't make her who she is. She decides to be a Skywalker. She was raised more by Luke and Leia and trained in the Jedi ways by them. So that makes her she's more a Skywalker than a Palpatine. She can choose that. She finds her own identity. I don't think it doesn't work just because they made her a Palpatine. I think it's more interesting that they made her a Palpatine. I'll say this though, it could have went a different way if Rian Johnson hadn't killed Snoke in The Last Jedi. But after he did, the only logical person with the kind of power to create someone like Snoke and be behind the dark side presence that existed, if there was a resurgence in the dark side, who is behind that? Who's going to be behind that? It's Palpatine. To this day and forever, I'll say it again, the biggest mistake the sequels made was the mishandling of Vision. If Abrams had done all 3 films, they would have been more effective. Or if Johnson did Rise of Skywalker, it would have been more effective. I think the fans fucked that up. If you want to know if you want my opinion, the fans fucked that up. If you're wondering, it's the Rise of Skywalker undoes The Last Jedi, even though I don't like The Last Jedi. People fucking complaining about Rian Johnson, maybe you shouldn't have, because then they would have hired him to do Rise of Skywalker, and maybe there would have been more of a cohesiveness. It would have felt more. People are so fucking annoying with we are so judgmental. People are so terrible in that regard. I don't know, But like I said, I have come to realize Star Wars is about more than satisfying audiences. That's for sure. It's about letting anyone who wishes to express what Star Wars means to them do that. Star Wars is always different with every new interpretation. Even George Lucas had different interpretations. From the day he made The Phantom Menace, it became clear how Star Wars truly exists in our culture. Instead of bitching about what it should be, we should embrace what it is and be grateful that no matter what, we can always come up with our own interpretations of it. Our imagination, remains the ultimate creator of Star Wars. So you could say it's like they shouldn't have made a sequel trilogy. Let it be whatever we want it to be. But that's still true now. Well, why do we got to be upset with what we got from the sequels? It's fun to have gotten more films. What it means to me is different from what it means to you. In my mind right now, I'm imagining what Rey Skywalker is doing in the next 30 years or whatever of her untold story. But it would be naive of me to assume everyone else is telling the same story of her in their own minds. You see what I mean? Part of me is dying to see a TV series or something on Disney Plus showing Rey rebuilding the Jedi Order. Not because it's like, we need more, I need more, but because, think about it, we haven't seen that. They have not, no film has ever focused on the actual rebuilding of the Order after the Empire. They didn't even get into that in the sequels. Luke did it, he was doing it, and then it was destroyed by Kylo Ren. So we briefly saw what that could be like. So part of me is like, why not truly explore that with a series or something, like with Rey, where she sheds herself and her Padawans of the old ways of the Jedi philosophy and brings about a new kind of Jedi. That would be interesting. But then part of me says, like I was saying, like I just said, leave it up to the audience to imagine what happens. That's where we're at. Once again, we're at that point again. You can do something. You can create a story with Rey, or you can leave it alone and let it exist here. If for some reason though, a Star Wars film or series about the Skywalkers, all of a sudden we have more Skywalker story. If for some reason that came out, I don't think they should do that exactly necessarily. It would be wise to not go into it with any expectation that the creator behind it is going to give you exactly what you want it to be. Enjoy it for what it is, or you know what, don't see it. That works. Some people maybe didn't see the sequels. They're like, I'm good. I know what happens after Return of the Jedi. I'm good. That's fine. The reason I think a Rey story would work, though, is because she's not technically a Skywalker. So she could transcend beyond whatever came before. She actually could be the perfect character to follow for like a next generation of that universe. But I honestly think if you're gonna do something after the sequels, like jump ahead like 100 years, 150 years or something. And there's a new Jedi Order. They're different, and we can feel Rey's influence. She's already dead, but she created the Order, and like that would be cooler, I think. Um, we can talk about vision a little bit. George Lucas gave us the universe of Star Wars, right? But it's how everyone else receives and interprets it that makes it grow and expand into the phenomenon that it is. Every creator who has come along to bring their own vision of Star Wars to life is not only brave, but inspirational. It's no secret that Star Wars fans are hard to please, and that's because every Star Wars fan has their own interpretation of what Star Wars is and should be. But for those of you clamoring to the simple idea that Star Wars is only what George Lucas made it out to be from 1977 to 1983 with the originals, you're fooling yourselves, okay? Because the same man who gave you those films gave us the prequels, which are very different from what Star Wars is and should be, you know? He made it clear with the creation of the prequels that Star Wars is always going to be unique and unexpected. It's also interesting, like I said, you know, the prequels are what George Lucas thought that's his interpretation of Star Wars. So think, you know, I think having this is good. This is a good episode. What are we at? A minute 11. I like it. We'll do a long. I like a long one. I like talking about this stuff. You know. I think it's a little hot in here though. I can't turn my AC on though when I record because you're gonna hear it. So I can't be comfortable. The prequels have inspired people too, as much as the originals, which is how I know the sequels will as well. This is like the main point, I think, because Star Wars manages to be the ultimate generational phenomenon. Generational. Given time, things like Marvel's Cinematic Universe may have a similar impact, but Star Wars is the only thing still to have as large as an impact as it does on multiple generations. You know, right now Marvel's just pretty much one or two generations. Star Wars is, you know, we're talking about 40 plus years. I personally won't argue that the originals are the best in terms of cinematic quality, but I grew up on the prequels, not the originals. This is important. For me, those films are what Star Wars looks and feels like. Or as a kid, I guess. I didn't know what to make of the originals, so, you know, like the first time I saw them, obviously, not all, you know, for obviously they grew into being my favorite, but I grew up on the prequels, and most people around me grew up on the prequels. You know, my generation, there's people in my generation who grew up on the prequels like me who don't even like the originals. So think about that. You know, kids growing up right now are growing up on the sequel films, and those films will be what they come to know as Star Wars. Are you going to tell the little girls who look up to Rey Skywalker as an icon that her story is not what Star Wars is? That's fucking ridiculous. God. I think Star Wars receives the kind of criticism it does because of its generational aspect. I think the generational thing can kind of harm it a little bit. It's the only franchise that separates each trilogy by so many years. So there's 16 years in between the first and second trilogy, and then there's 10 years in between the second and third. Therefore, the trilogy that comes next naturally changes into something different. Here's the difference, though. They're not necessarily doing a trilogy. They're not necessarily doing a saga or anything like that, and it's not as long of a wait. They're doing more films soon. I think 2022. It's different now. It's just different now. So I don't know how things go from here, but the way it's been, previous generations are always going to have a problem with the new generation. It's like kind of like just in life. It's like, well, back in my day, it's like one of those things. Like it's a generational thing. Um, I don't know. Of course, you're going to have a problem with it if they don't feel like the ones you grew up on. But it doesn't mean they're not Star Wars. I hate that. Like they, I don't know. The prequels were the biggest, for a while people just bitched about them all the time, but they paved the way for good ideas. Like the books, the Old Republic books, that's that feel too. That manages to feel like the prequels and feel older, much older than what we've seen, and that's the point. Um, and the Clone Wars series too is that feel of the prequels. I'm repeating myself now, right? The creators who dare tell a Star Wars story, knowing the odds are against them when it comes to pleasing fans, are bringing to life their interpretations of Star Wars, their visions for what Star Wars feels like to them. I like the different takes on things. I like how Star Wars allows for that kind of expression. Star Wars can be separated into many visions at this point. George Lucas, Lawrence Kasdan, Drew Karpyshyn, Paul S. Camp, Kevin Anderson, Tom Veitch, J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, Dave Filoni. I mean, all of those people, all of those creators, and you think that Star Wars is going to feel like one thing? Like your expectation of it? Get the fuck out of here. It's impossible. Look at how many people have created things in Star Wars. Each one of these creators is using Star Wars to tell a story that affects us, that relates to us, and each is saying something they wish to say about our world. Why do you have to hate on it? Just because it's not what you want. Do you know what I mean? The big thing that was going around too as of late was the debate about Colin Trevorrow's episode 9 being better than what we actually got. More petty bullshit. There were leaks of his ideas for the final film. And it all looks cool and interesting. So, for those of you who don't know, Trevorrow, who directed the Jurassic World movies, was originally supposed to be the director of episode 9. Before having creative differences and then stepping down, J.J. Abrams took over. J.J. Abrams did episode 7 and 9. So he did the first and the last in the trilogy. Trevorrow's film would not have been better. I'm going to put it out there right now. For anyone saying that, you're wrong. It would not have been better. It just would have been different. His vision, his interpretation of what Star Wars means to him is what you would have gotten. And maybe there... Okay, so maybe there would have been less flaws, like continuity-wise, I guess. I don't really... But would it have been better? No, I don't think it would have been better. There would still probably be stuff in that version of Episode 9 that people would have complained and bitched about because Star Wars has really heightened this quality in the human condition. If you want any example of us as a whiny, bitchy species, Star Wars really seems to bring it out of us. Each vision behind a Star Wars story is not wrong, people. It's not wrong. It's just unique and different. It's not something to complain about. It's something to admire. The creators who take on Star Wars project are brave for doing it. There's no way around the backlash. And they know it, too. They know going in. But they dive into the Star Wars universe anyway. They because it's worth it. Spending even a little bit of time being the creator of any story in that universe is worth it. They're brave for doing it. And I'm grateful we have all the stories that we have. Not just the originals. You know? what else? I mean, I can go. I told you I can go all day about it. I guess all in all, my take on Star Wars is clear. It's the biggest cultural phenomenon in history. It takes on a life of its own, and no single person or group of people have the right to try and claim it, or claim it should be a certain way. It transcends even that which creators express. It's enough that it simply exists for us to enjoy. That's it, you know? For every generation that grows up with Star Wars, it's going to be different from the Star Wars that came before. But it's what that generation knows to be Star Wars. The same way a hater of the prequels can't tell me I shouldn't enjoy those films because they're not Star Wars. Haters of the prequels can't tell me I shouldn't enjoy those. Haters of the sequels. This is what using a fucking template does to me sometimes. Haters of the sequels have no right to tell the kids growing up on the current films that those films are not Star Wars. You can't tell kids growing up on these sequels that they shouldn't enjoy them because they're not fucking like what the originals were. It's just so fucking petty. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. I'm not going to just, obviously, but there is a line between voicing your opinion and trying to diminish someone else's. That's another thing Star Wars seems to bring out. These films are the opinion of the person who made the film, of what Star Wars should mean, right? And you're just shitting all over these creators. So you're not just voicing your opinion anymore, you're diminishing theirs, and that's wrong. That's when it's wrong. Yeah. In this day and age, a movie is labeled as good or bad based on the overall reception. And honestly, that's a damn shame, okay? For every person that hates a film, there's someone who loves it. There's bad movies out there that people love. I hate seeing these articles like, The Rise of Skywalker is the movie we love to hate. Well, how about the people who love to love it? Do their opinions matter? I want to see more articles about people who love these films and tell me their opinions. Because there's not enough of those. There's only people hating. I can't stand the hate. There's too much hate. It's just the day and age we live in too. Rotten Tomatoes scores and IMDb ratings. That's what we base a lot of it. Those don't matter as much as people think because those numbers are only a fraction of the people who actually see the movies that come out. I think you get 100,000 ratings or something. 100,000. That's nothing. You know how many people are in the world? You know how many people are watching? There are plenty of people who love something that people unanimously hate. I use Rotten. You know what I use Rotten Tomatoes for? To decide whether or not I'm going to go see it in theaters. I think just because going to the movie theater is expensive, so maybe that makes me a little petty. I don't know. But if it's rotten, I'll just wait till it comes out. Maybe it's not worth the theater. The theater experience is important. I'm missing it right now. But some films don't almost, I guess, deserve that. I don't know. If it's rotten, I won't go see it as much in theaters. If it's fresh, it's like, okay, maybe it's worth the theater experience. That's kind of the only thing I use Rotten Tomatoes for. Don't base a score on Rotten Tomatoes. Don't, if it's got a 90 on Rotten Tomatoes, that doesn't mean that it's amazing and everyone's gonna love it. People are gonna not like it. Same thing in reverse, people, it got a 50. Oh my god, well, why should I like it then? Fucking like it because you like it, not because Rotten Tomatoes told you not to like it. Fucking ridiculous. This was here's my big thing too. I want to make this point. Even if a film is rotten and I've loved the film series, if it's part of a series, I mean, Star Wars, think about it. Star Wars or any big cultural series of films or shows, you have to realize that sometimes quality doesn't matter. You know, this is the final point I'm going to make about Star Wars and anything big, is that okay? So here, I don't think many people would disagree with me if I said Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie ever made. That or A New Hope. Okay, but why should it matter if the films that follow aren't as good? There needs to be a best. They can't all be the best. Think about that first. Empire, A New Hope, those films are the pinnacle of Star Wars quality. But Star Wars itself has grown well beyond those films in the many years following. With Star Wars, quality doesn't matter as much as it used to because Star Wars is not about quality anymore. It's merely about embracing whatever stories are told in that universe. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I will say this. I get mad when people shit all over a series of films or a TV series. If one moment of it, isn't as good as another. It's one thing if it's just one movie, you don't like the movie, right? But when you're dealing with something like Star Wars, or in this day and age, Marvel, you fell in love with the world and the characters. You fell in love with the stories, the many stories that there are, and you're gonna shit all over it, disown the whole body of work just because one chapter, one movie, or one moment in the whole large saga didn't live up to your superficial expectations. This was my biggest problem with Game of Thrones, too. The final season of Game of Thrones. There were a lot of people shitting on the show and shitting on the writers. So wrong to do. Shitting on the writers because they didn't give you the ending you imagined in your head. But look at what they did give you. Look at the seasons that came before. Look at the story. Look at the characters you fell so in love with. You prayed every week and every year that your favorite characters weren't going to get killed. You loved it. But now you hate it because of one season that didn't come out the way you wanted it to? I'll say it again, man. I mean, ask yourself if you liked it, but then ask yourself if it works. If it still works, shut the fuck up and be a fan. You want to talk about writers and creators betraying the audience? That's how a lot of people phrase it. They betrayed us with what they've given. Let me tell you right now, the ultimate betrayal is the way fans turn on the creators and on the body of work itself. That's the ultimate betrayal. Star Wars is bigger than our expectations. It's one of the ultimate forms of escape that exists. The true fan is not the one who blogs online about how it failed. The true fan is the one who embraces what it turned out to be and accepts the direction it goes, no matter how they feel about it. The true fan is the one that continues to love it even after it shocks you with something you didn't want. That is where I'll leave my overall take. I'm not a hater, because there's already too much hate in the world. And it's not just, I don't have to, it's obvious the hate that's in the world, but I love film too much. I love stories too much to truly shit on anyone's perspective or anyone's telling of something. Like, it's art. It's subjective. It's not going to be what you want. I think that the creators have the best response to J.J. Abrams. He said something like, someone asked him, "What do you think about all the people that hate the movie?" He was like, "They're right, and so are the ones who loved it," because it's true. It's true. All right. Wow, we're going an hour and a half. Oh my god. Let's rank. I'm gonna rank. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go through and rank my rank, and it's my opinion. And fuck you. And also have yours. And I'm sorry for saying fuck you. All right. So overall with Star Wars, the originals are first for me. The originals are number one. The original films. Then the novels and comics come second for me. And this is, I mean, only recently I've started diving into that content, but it's so good. There's a lot of really fucking fantastic ones. I haven't read any of the comics yet, but I've heard they're good, and I'm gonna read some of them. But I know I did read I read the earlier ones. I love the old stuff. I mean, like, I haven't read any of the recent comics. Star Wars is coming out with the High Republic era. I haven't read any. I don't know when that even comes out. But then the TV series come next for me. I think because of The Mandalorian and, oh God, Clone Wars is so great. That put it above. It's originals, novels, TV series. And where the TV series have the potential of going to, that's why TV series comes next for me. Number 3, TV series. Then the sequels, not the prequels. The sequels are next because let's be real about quality. They are a little they're better than the prequels in terms of quality. I mean, you know what? And I grew up on the prequels, but the sequels were more. They're very enjoyable. They pull on a lot of similar themes and threads of the originals. I think that make them more impactful. They feel more like the originals. That makes them. I like, they actually feel like both. They have a feel of the prequels and the originals that makes. My own personal opinion: sequels, then the prequels, and then the solo films are last, like Solo and Rogue One. But I will say this now, having watched the Clone Wars, those films like Solo and Rogue One, those are aimed more at TV. And honestly, if you're limiting yourself to the movies, you're doing yourself a disservice because there's just so much more content that's fucking great, enjoyable. That it'll also help your perspective too on Star Wars. You won't be so one track minded about fucking Star Wars if you allow yourself to branch out past the fucking movies. Talking about the movies, let's talk about the Skywalker saga. I'll rank them. Number 1, Empire. Empire Strikes Back. 10 out of 10. It's my favorite one. And not just because of the fucking twist of Darth Vader, which I know people even predicted, which whatever. I mean, it's just so many aspects of that film. From Yoda to fucking Han and Leia's growth and just everything about that fucking movie. It's the best Star Wars film. It's 10 out of 10. A New Hope, the one that started it all, 9.6 out of 10. Because it's the one that started it all, but also because it's like the perfectly written or structured movie, honestly. And it was almost like, it's crazy to think about too, because George Lucas, I mean, he did write and rewrite that so much. To think about what Star Wars was when he first wrote it to what it became when A New Hope came out, it's so different. He really did a fantastic job writing that film and making it exactly what it needed to be for all of our sakes. Then The Force Awakens, for me, is number 3. Yes, that's right. And not because the sequels turn out to be better or anything than the originals. No. But because The Force Awakens truly, I truly think that's a great Star Wars film, even with the repetitiveness of it, a little bit feeling like A New Hope, a little bit like Empire. It's just a great Star Wars film. It's better, in my opinion, than Return of the Jedi, which is a bold thing to say, but Return of the Jedi is a little weird sometimes. There's weird moments in Return. There's less weird moments in Force Awakens, okay? So that's I don't know. 9.2 out of 10. No, 9.5 out of 10. Then Return of the Jedi, obviously. I'm not going to fucking devalue it that much for you people. It's my opinion, too, so fuck off. 9.2 out of 10 for Return of the Jedi. And then The Last Jedi. For all the Last Jedi haters, The Last Jedi for me is not a bad Star Wars film. It's a bold Star Wars film. It's an interesting Star Wars film. It's a fun Star Wars film. I very much, it ages well for me. I give it an 8.9 out of 10. Then Revenge of the Sith, which is the best of the prequels. It is what it needs to be. Revenge of the Sith. I give it a 8.4 out of 10. Then The Rise of Skywalker, which is not, to put it this low on the list does not mean that I think it's bad or anything. Like, I still give it an 8.2. Like, it's a good Star Wars movie. It's good. It's as good. It's good the way that Revenge of the Sith is good. They're not great, but they're good. You know. Then Attack of the Clones. 7.0 out of 10. See, I've dropped significantly now. I went from 8.2 to 7.0, but 7 because they don't age well. The last two. The acting is the animation is the structure is kind of it's just they're not like peak. They are the two worst, but they're still fun. They're still they get the thing is when you watch them as much as I've watched them, like they're the ones that get harder to rewatch. I'll put it that way. The rest they're not harder to rewatch. The last two. So the Phantom Menace is my least favorite, which is funny because the Phantom Menace has a lot of personal. I have a lot of personal stake in that one. I give it a 6.8 out of 10. But it's that's the first one I ever saw. It's also the first movie I ever saw in theaters. I was 4 years old. I saw it. The first movie I ever saw in theaters. Made me want to fucking make movies. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think it's on the bottom of the list, but it is because of, once again, like, it gets. Let me put it to you this way: if you can still sit through the fucking pod race sequence in that movie, man, it just gets tough. It's just not holding up. Now, if you want to read Star Wars stories, and I recommend you do, the chronological order is Dawn of the Jedi, which is 3 comics, 1 novel. Tales of the Jedi, 7 comic series. The Old Republic, 4 novels. Darth Bane, 3 novels. Darth Plagueis, 1 novel. Then the movies and what's super cool about the Plagueis book is that it overlaps with Episode 1, Phantom Menace, in a really cool way, which is awesome. Now I'm just recommending these books and comics because to me they are the most important ones. They're also the best ones. There's a shit ton more to play around with. I'm gonna leave out a lot of the novels and comics that take place after the films, but the most important ones that take place after the films are the Thrawn series, 3 novels, Jedi Academy, 4 novels, then the big alternate universe, as I now like to think of it, is the New Jedi Order. 19 novels, that's the first 3 right there. I haven't read them yet, but I mean, I hear that they're the best of all the novels. They're also another version of how things could have went after Return of the Jedi. You have to think of them as an alternate universe now because the sequels are not the same as this. So you have to think of them as kind of like an alternate reality or something. Which, honestly, in Star Wars wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. There could be alternate universe. There could be a multiverse. They've never really touched on it, but there could be. Look at how fucking crazy it is and shit. I don't know. And then also there's Legacy of the Force, which takes place after that. There's 9 novels. Other good ones are any of the New Republic era, I guess. Or if you like going backwards, as I do, because it's more mysterious, I like the stuff way before what we've seen. That's kind of more interesting to me, because it's like, what was things like then? Like, I hear that the lost tribes of the Sith is really good, which I haven't read. In terms of the novels and comics that I have read, I will rate them for you. Darth Bane, the Darth Bane series, is the best shit I've ever read in Star Wars content. I give it a 9.8. That shit is... Darth Bane is fucking... First of all, he's a very interesting character for a fucking Sith, and he's... his story, the way it changes from the first book to the third book, it's unbelievable, is the only word I can think of. Then the Old Republic novels come next. I give them a 9.5 out of 10. They're fucking awesome, too. I mean, really awesome. And if you've played those games, you'll love the books. I've never played the games, but... Then the New Jedi Order, which I haven't read, but I'm putting it in here because people... 9.2 out of 10. I don't know why I'm even putting it in here. I haven't read them. I can't really rate them. I haven't read them. Sorry, but whatever. Darth Plagueis, though, 9.0 out of 10. That book is fucking great because you get a mention of Darth Plagueis and then you want to know more about him. It's fantastic. It really is. Legacy of the Force. Once again, I didn't read. I don't know why I put them in here. 8.9 out of 10. Tales of the Jedi comics, 8.7. Dawn of the Jedi comics and one novel, 8.4. In terms of the shows, The Mandalorian, 9.3 out of 10. Clone Wars, 8.8 out of 10. I'm just fucking loving that right now. Rebels, 8.3 out of 10. But that's only because that rating is based on me seeing only a few episodes of that. I'm gonna actually watch the whole series now that I've watched that. Now that I'm watching the Clone Wars. In terms of the solo films, Rogue One is the best of those two, 8.8 out of 10. That's actually a really good Star Wars movie. And then Solo, 7.8 out of 10. It's okay, you know. Like I said, though, those movies really are aimed more towards the TV lovers, you know? The people who love the Clone Wars and stuff. And it makes me actually like them. They're aging better for me now that I've seen the Clone Wars. To finish off the conversation, I just real quick want to talk about ways to watch Star Wars. Because the way you watch is important. It can have a different effect. So you can watch them in the order they came out. 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. But you kind of don't get you don't set up the plot points properly for yourself to get the real flow of it. There's better flow with better ordering. The way I've been watching them is 4 and 5, A New Hope, Empire. You get the reveal of Darth Vader is Luke's father. Then you go back and see how that happened with 1, 2, 3. And then 6, 7, 8, 9. Here's why, too. It gives Revenge of the Sith a plot point twist of its own, a reveal of its own. The prequels don't have reveals, really. It's just a telling of things we kind of already know or have been told, and we're seeing how it unfolds. They don't have, like, reveals, really. We know Anakin becomes Darth Vader. Let's just see how it happens. But if you do it this way, it gives Revenge a reveal, because originally it's Return of the Jedi that tells us that Luke and Leia are brother and sister. This way, it's Revenge of the Sith that tells you that Luke and Leia are brother and sister, and it's more effective, I've found, than Return of the Jedi. So, I mean, think about the two sequences where those things are revealed. In Revenge of the Sith, it's much more impactful, that sequence. She's giving birth. It's cross-cutting with Anakin becoming Darth Vader. And then all of a sudden it's like, she's carrying twins. Wait a minute, what? And then it's like, well, who's the second one? And then they give you that name. She says Luke first, then she says Leia. It's a much more impactful way of revealing that they're twins. As opposed to Return of the Jedi, where it's just a conversation between Obi-Wan and Luke, and it's kind of like, just talking heads. Like, so that's why that's more effective. And another way you can do it is the way I saw it originally in my life. So you can do 1, 2, Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. So you're like following Anakin, he's your hero. It's like, okay. Then you skip 3, you go to 4 and 5. You're like, okay, so this is Anakin's son. But where's Anakin? Oh, Obi-Wan told us he was killed by Darth Vader. Oh, fuck that guy. He's the bad guy. And then, boom, Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker. Wait, what? No shit. Go back to 3, see how it happened. Still get the reveal of Luke and Leia in that film being siblings. And then go back to 6. And then 7, 8, 9. And it's those are the better ways to watch, I think. May the 4th be with you, people. This was really cool to have a long episode. This was a cool special. Come back next week. I'm going to talk about a small film that I watched recently. It was very good. So since this is a Star Wars themed episode, let's do a Star Wars quote. But it's a little different this week. So you have to name the Star Wars film, specifically which Star Wars film it is, who says it, and who they're talking to. So the Star Wars quote is, "Why do I get the feeling we've picked up another pathetic life form?" Name that movie, specifically, who says it, who's he talking to. Oh, I just revealed it was a he. Fuck. Alright. And yeah, as usual, I'm your host, Ben Morganti. And you can follow the show at Screen Preach. You can follow me personally at the Ben Morganti on Instagram. Twitter, the Ben Morganti. Go check out my website at benmorgantistory.com. You really want to support the show? Become a patron at Patreon. You can find this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and most likely Apple Podcasts, or you can find it on YouTube by looking up Screen Preach. Once again, may the 4th be with you all. Have a great Star Wars day. Have fun, all of it. I don't know. We're going to get through this. We're going to keep pushing on. Have a cinematic week.